I've heard some people say that when combat starts, their immersion in the game often breaks down. It can be true, but in general, the opposite happens with me. I've played in lots of games with large numbers of players in a combat, which takes place, which could last 4 hours, and I'm on the edge of my seat from beginning to end. And I think an essential ingredient in this is efficiency of description. The GM has to keep the action ticking over rapidly and efficiently, describing what the players need to know and moving on from player to player, rapidly describing what's going on. Equally, it's the player's responsibility to keep this momentum going. I've played in an online game where they had a large waiting list of players hovering in the wings. If one PC died, another would step in. There's a lot of combat, a lot of action. It was an action-heavy game, and in there they had a rule that if you didn't start when the turn came to you, if you hadn't started to describe your actions and what you were doing in the first 10 seconds, you'd lose your turn, and you'd have to wait until the initiative order had come all the way around before you could act again. I think this is a good rule. I think it's important to know before the turn comes to you what you're going to do. I have 3 steps that I like to follow. 3 steps I follow when on my turn. First, I ask any relevant questions I need to know about the environment that have not been made clear in the descriptions or that I'm uncertain about. Sometimes some GMs recap what's going on around each player just as they transfer from one player to another, just as a quick sort of 1 or 2 sentence reintroduction to what's this focus of the combat, what's happening in this focus of the combat, who are around you, what they're doing, how they're looking. Then I move on to describing narratively what my PC will do. If it's just mechanical, it will be boring. I like action films, but and I think action can reveal as much about character and move the plot forward as much as dialogue, as much as conversation. You've just got to plan, add to the atmosphere or style of the game you're playing. A comedy game will have a different style of combat to a brutal survival horror or heroic, a brutal heroic Rocky type movie, rather than Clint Eastwood, Jackie Chan, Lord of the Rings. They all have different styles of action. Choose the style of action you want to narrate and let your PC try cool things. From the narrative, at the end of the narrative, you should then go on to the mechanical bit. If the GM hasn't already realized, explain mechanically what your character is doing, roll the relevant dice, and describe the events, describe the actions, results. And often in one turn, you can do multiple actions. Go through them rapidly until you've done them all, and then make it clear so the action can go on to the next player, so you're not wasting anybody's time. One little thing I'd include is react to things that have happened before you. Listen, that's vital, to everything that's happened before you, and react. Include a reaction to that, to either good actions that your allies have taken, or even terrible actions. Laugh at terrible actions, scoff at your opponents, intimidate them, laugh at their actions, be scared at their actions. There are different reactions, but react. This keeps it vital and brings character into it, and brings interaction between everybody on the battlefield. There's one other moment. That's your turn, but out of your turn, in D&D, and I suggest in other role-playing games, you can have 1 reaction. In D&D, a round is only 6 seconds, so, well, limit your dialogue to anything that can be said in 6 seconds. And maybe have one reaction. A reaction is triggered by something that happens on the battlefield. When that trigger happens, tell the player or the GM who is narrating at the time that this has triggered, and when they give you the nod, describe what your reaction will be. Again, using the same format of describe it narratively and then do it mechanically, and describe again, go back to the narratives for the results. Other interruptions are possible if you think there's been some misunderstanding, either between two people, or a misunderstanding about the rule. First, work out whether it's important to bring it up. If it won't really have any impact on the game, don't worry about it. But if it will cause a problem in the future, it's probably best to interrupt at that moment. Other interruptions are jokes, asides, chat and banter. If you're playing in a game, if you're just a group of friends who've met together with the excuse of a role-playing game to get together and have a good time together, go for it. But if you're more serious about your gaming and want a high-quality game, or if you're playing in a online, in a convention, in a game store, the reason why you're all there is to play the game. So try to keep banter and distractions from the game. Play it by ear, but don't allow it to overwhelm the game. The reason why you're all there is the game. Now these are things I've used, and I've been in games that I've used to keep the action flowing in combat, and keep combat interesting, exciting, and punchy. So you always have to be attent to what's going on. The environment's changing all the time, and to keep it exciting, basically. I've been in games that have had combats lasting 4 hours that have been every bit as exciting as any action I've seen in any action film. It's just how you deliver it, it's just important to keep the action moving on all the time. I also suggest that these techniques of realizing that you should be efficient in the time you spend narrating what you're doing, and then letting another player have the spotlight, is important generally in role-playing. In conversation, I've played in lots of games where one player hogs the spotlight. Add to the game, add to the atmosphere, the style, reveal your character, but do it efficiently, and then move it on and let another player have their PC have their moment. And so it becomes a communal, shared experience. My name's Caius. I love role-playing games, and I hope to see you in one.